Hey guys, Mike here. So definitely a range-bound day into the last 5 minutes, but there was some stocks surging. A lot of it was news for these stocks. In case you missed Saturday's video, I will talk to you about, in particular, one of these stocks, which has some big news today, which I absolutely hope takes place because it would actually be good for our country, believe it or not, if it did. On the chip front, that is for sure, at least in my opinion. And of course, we did have a little bit of news, but again, you're talking about a week with really no real major news. I mean, you got FOMC minutes tomorrow, and then Friday we'll have, I think it's flash PMI, if I'm not mistaken. But you know, after coming off all these weeks where it was just FOMC meetings and Jerome and the president talking, and all these different jobs data flying out of here and stuff, it's a very quiet data week and stuff. And so that's why you saw a lot of range bound. And we'll talk about what happened in the last 5 minutes. But when you look right here at some data that came out, again, nobody cares about it, but it says if I'm going to report the bad, I got to report the good, right? So I said, well, watch manufacturing. So you got February Empire Manufacturing Index came in better than expected. And then the new orders especially came in better than expected. Prices paid way up versus last time. Unemployment down. So very interesting. Not that Empire Manufacturing is the big be-all. I kind of like to look at the Midwest and those kind of areas. But again, it's not below zero. And so that is the key, to come out of contraction. That is the key. And so we'll see if that keeps up. Now, I keep telling you, the bond market, man, they ain't pricing in nothing bad. You got U.S. corporate spreads near record tight levels. I show this to members all the time. It's kind of crazy. Again, it hit in 2021. You got to go back before the '08 crash to see it. It can go lower. You see when the dot-com bubble started right there in 98. It was lower, but again, they ain't pricing in nothing. Everything's kind of relaxed right now. So we'll see. Don't know if it's complacency or whatever it is, but that's just where we're at right now. That's why the stock market's like, great, this is wonderful because it's taking its cues from the bond market right now. Now, SPY, you can see, set a new all-time high, gapped up overnight. The Qs did as well. But again, once again, we set it, boom, immediately come down, and then it just goes basically range bound. But when you look here, if we come down, this is a daily fair value you get right here. That's going to be the liquidity right there. If it does decide to come back down, anywhere from like 605 to 607.50, I believe it is. And you can see the range. I mean, this was pretty much all day going back to actually last Friday, just staying there. We dipped right below it, take some liquidity, came right back up into the range, as you can see. And so like that 610.96 was pretty much the top for the day until we got to the very end. And the reason why is because what happened, and the reason why is because puts, they say they were dominating, but not really, but they were just outpacing the calls. And so everything was just kind of stuck. We were stuck at this dark pool level, 609.73, until the last 5 minutes of the day, where you can see we popped up 0.25%, which is more than we did all day. And so, yeah, that was kind of a funny one there. But let me know if you were getting in on that stuff. So squeezing the bears a little more, set another new all-time high right at the end of the day. The Qs did the same thing. Everything just kind of squeezed up there. But you see the Qs gapped up, set a new all-time high, immediately comes back down below that. But with that surge, ended up closing above where it was at. But when you're looking here, what you really want to look at is the equal weight ETFs, because the RSP was up 0.75% today when the SPY and Qs would be either flat or red. And we're going to draw a trend line here. You can see it's starting to break above that trend line. So that is a good thing for the market, because what does it mean? More stocks, equal weighted stocks, are moving up, right? And it's especially big on the QQEW, which is up over 1% today with that surge at the very end. But it was up like 0.75 like the whole day. And you can see the difference between this one and the Qs, right? And so a lot more stocks. I'm sure you've seen it in your portfolio. Let me know if you have, where it's not just about the Mag 7. The Mag 7 are just, I've showed you multiple times now. Besides Nvidia going up that trend line, which we'll talk about, other than Microsoft not doing much, Apple is, Meta is, Tesla's not, Google and Amazon, which we'll talk about, are not. And so again, money is rotating into Chinese stocks and some other stocks we're going to talk about here today. But again, you can see the QQEW right here. There's your levels to watch out for if they continue. Again, this is good for the market as a whole, right? And I've showed you multiple times where the QQEW sets all-time highs before the QQQ. But for your really big moves in the market, you got to have the Mag 7 participate, at least half of them. And speaking of Mag 7, you saw Nvidia deal we talked about yesterday, right? Came up to this trend line. We expected what? A rejection. As soon as we got there, that's what we got. And so no surprise there. That's what usually happens. So that's the third touch right there. And as long as these moving averages and, stuff like that stay intact, which I'm going to bring up just a second, you can see where that low was at 128. So somewhere between like 129.81, 133.50, as long as that area can stay intact, you're probably going to see, again, they have earnings coming up here in a little while. but you're going to see this rally continue most likely. If that breaks, well, obviously, then money is definitely rotating out, which you wouldn't think it would be because it's been moving up nicely. But that area, that's why I give such a big range, because if it breaks those two major moving averages, then 130.04 needs to hold, right? But again, if it breaks that trend line to the upside, we're probably heading to the all-time highs again. Now, you might notice Intel going crazy. I talked about this over the weekend, how a company ran so badly does not have to be run good to move up. Well, what happened? We knew President Trump had talked about them running the factories. All of a sudden, over the weekend, Avgo says, well, hey, we're interested in taking over part of it. And then Taiwan Semiconductor is interested in taking over part of it. So Broadcom is interested in Intel's chips design division, and Taiwan Semiconductors wants the manufacturing side of it. And honestly, I hope it happens because it'll be much better for America to have companies that know what they're doing to run this company here in the States. Okay, and so that will make sense and make us more secure with getting our chips produced, getting it done the right way. Because I don't even think they have an actual legitimate CEO right now. I think they're still looking for one. But with this one, what you're looking at is RSI is above 50. The MACD, when it gets above that zero line, that's when you're really going to be cooking with Crisco. Just keep that in mind. And so we'll see if that's going to continue. But again, I showed you Saturday where your levels are at, right? And so once that broke, you can see the volume gaps right there where it's heading to. And so look for 31.45 right there to be decent amount of resistance. Again, this one, all these candles are news, right? This isn't like, oh, look, they hung earnings and they didn't. No, this is just news after news after news coming out here. And so, we're going to see if it keeps up. 35.20 is going to be a big area to watch if it continues to keep pumping and pumping and pumping, for sure, no doubt about that. And so it's almost like, I feel like it's like Chinese stocks where I say, hey, if news keeps pumping, it just keeps going. Without news, can it keep going? That's really the big thing to watch here. And if you're looking at as far as like if there's any pullbacks, the levels you can clearly see mapped out here. Right there is going to be one. And then if we come down, you can see right here, that was resistance, resistance, support, resistance, resistance. So that will be a good area right there. So if we take those away, you're looking at 24.83. And then if it keeps wanting to come down to give a bigger pullback, 22.06, if that happens. It doesn't have to do that. I'm just telling you if that's what you're looking for. SMCI, again, this one is based off what? Them, and I was telling members about this last night, them reporting their 10Q. They got to do it by February 25th. They don't have to wait till February 25th. So, this one keeps pumping as people are buying calls and buying shares and loading into this thing. And you would think they're going to be fine, right? You would think they're going to report their 10Q in time and not get delisted. If it gets delisted, well, then you're going to have flashbacks of SoundHound here, where you saw what happened just with Nvidia dumped their shares, right? It dropped 25%, just like that. Just off Nvidia dumping their shares, which is, kind of crazy, but that's what happened. So if they get delisted, that is not a good thing. But a lot of people, I would think the odds are against that because remember, they've gone through this before. They've had accounting areas before. And so, they bring in a lot of revenue. If that revenue is true, then, they're a participant in the AI pump and everything, or at least they were. And they already said they shouldn't, at least their new auditor said they shouldn't have to restate their financials, which is even bigger, okay? And so it depends on not only filing the 10Q, but what does it say? And so right now you can see it breaking out of that trend line right there. And so if they file it, stay listed, all that stuff, this one could move. The question is, let me know in the comments, do you think it's going to be a sell the news event or not? That's going to be another one I want to know because it's moved up so much in the last week. Now AMD coming here in this trend line once again, you can see I think it's 6 straight green days. And so this is going to be a big one for multiple reasons. If it breaks right there, the reason why is because you end up with a lot. You got trend line resistance, horizontal line resistance, and then on top of that, you also have the 200-week moving average. So that's what I'm saying. If it breaks all of that, it can be an explosive move. Again, 137 is probably going to be a good target to pick, which would be that descending trend line, the bigger one. And you can see most time, and when it comes back above it, you get really big runs above the 200-week. And you can get some explosive candles as well on top of that, especially with all that confluence. And it has nothing to do with the financials. It has nothing to do with AI pump. It just has to do with the technicals on the chart right there. Okay, and everybody's looking going, well, these stocks are way up here, and this one is beat down way down here, and it's still a popular name and everything. So we'll see. Again, it came down to a big area of support. It came down to a weekly fair value gap. So if it can get above that, it's good. If it gets rejected, well, let's start heading down even lower. Tesla, nothing much going on, really puts out weight calls, no call sweepers, but what's it doing? It's holding that 359 area right there. It's rejected 3 times off of it now. And so if you can get above that, I think you're going to see that trend line to the top right there come into play for sure, which puts it around 374, 375, depending on where it hits it at. But again, you cannot break 334.57. That is really the key. The 100 moving average is also down in that area. And this is another one. Like we said, Nvidia was going, raging this morning out of the gates, and Tesla was not. Tesla, you can see it's just flat right now. This is a 4-hour chart, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different candles, just kind of sitting there waiting to see what's going to happen. I don't know of any news that will be coming out for this one at all. I mean, BYD has a lot of news coming out. Has any good news come out for Tesla at this point? But it is holding up. It is still holding up. Now, Google, this is another one. It says in an interesting spot. I was talking about it last night, but I'll show you on the chart where it's trying to hold right here because it has that gap right down below. Okay, so if it breaks the trend line, breaks that horizontal support, most likely we're heading down into that gap. Again, I think the low on that gap is like 175, tops around 181. And so, keep an eye on that one. Amazon right here, this one broke down. We talked about last night, broke that 50 moving average, came down below the golden fib. There's a small gap is filling right there, as you can see. And so, not a good thing there. And, it's just like these Mag 7, I'm telling you, man, he's just getting rotated out and getting in, putting these on the stocks right now. You can see there's another gap down below that. But for me, I mean, I'd have to see it break above that trend line, have to get above at least 228, 229, really, to sit there and start building out some more market structure to the upside right now. And so we'll see how this one's going to respond. But I know the area where everybody will be looking to try to take a position, most likely is going to be right around this right here, at 215, 216 area right there, which has been support, resistance in the past. So that would definitely be another one, huge discount window it would be in at that point in time. So that would be interesting if we get there. But I know a lot of buyers will step in at that point for sure. Now, looking at Datadog, this is another interesting one because it's setting the 200 moving average. I always like to highlight any stocks in the 200 moving average, especially when it's bounced 3 times previous to hitting the 200. You can see the volume range, volume profile. So you got support and volume. It usually comes in here. Gap down after the earnings, obviously. So there's nothing but technicals is all this is. So we'll see if this one gets a bounce to try to fill that gap up above. We've seen it do it multiple times. And again, that trend line, though, is still lower if it wants to bring more into it. There's a support line that actually intersects right with that ascending trend line right there. As you can see, if you look at what happened previously when it was consolidating before a big move up. So I just want to bring that one to your attention. And then as far as earnings tomorrow, so a lot of different ones. Etsy, Solar Edge, a lot of high flyers here. Fiverr, Analog Devices, then we have Wingstop. And then in the afternoon, somebody was asking me, can Carvana get to 400? I put nothing past that stock. Toast is another one. That's a fintech. Somebody put on my radar. And Cheesecake Factory. And then as far as data, really the only thing to worry about is FOMC minutes at 2 o'clock, which will give us a look into what they think about rate cuts in the future. So hope you guys got something out of it. Please hit that like, subscribe button if you did. Think about signing up for the membership. Less than McDonald's combo. And I'll end up seeing you guys for another fun one tomorrow. Hopefully there's a lot more movement. So have a good one.